Yes.
Setting
It's
up.
streaming. Yes. Do you want to record it also?
Where's that button? Oh, I got the button. That's a regular button.
And I'm going to stream it from your Facebook to my Facebook. I'm going to share it.
Watch the Facebook page or watch the Zoom?
You should watch the Zoom. Don't mess with the Facebook at all. It'll mess you up. In fact, kind of click off of it. And once we know we're streaming, click off it so it doesn't like notify us to death. Notifications to death. Death by notifications is what I'm calling it. Because when you're on this, it's like super distracting. That happened with me and Bethany this morning. Bethany did a Facebook Live for me with her group, and it was like notifications up the wazoo.
What if you have questions? Okay, so are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
We're live on Facebook. I just don't trust it because last time it was weird. I'm going to look one more time over here. It's making me log in everywhere. Okay. Give me 1 second. It's making me log in everywhere. Funky odds silence. So you're sharing. Okay, we're not going to worry about it because I wanted to be able to read questions. But it looks like Shelly is joining us. And Katie is joining us. So I'm still getting confirmations to join us here. So welcome everybody. This is Dr. Heather, and I'm super, super excited to be here with my super good friend. I always use the word super because I like it.
It's a super word.
First of all, I'm going to start off by giving a huge, big apology to so many of you. We tried to do this a few weeks ago, and we had some technological difficulties. And if I'm talking faster than normal, it's because I'm nervous about streaming Zoom into Facebook. So that is my nervous smile. So hopefully this is working. You all can be here. But Dr. Kristen and I tried to do this talking about, is keto enough for your immune system? Because she is doing an amazing 6-week journey starting November 1st. And she invited each and every one of you on October 22nd. I invited each and every one of you via her on October 22nd. And again, another big apology because I told this would happen, every seat filled out, and some of you could not make her webinar on October 22nd. So I begged her and pleaded and said, hey, can you join us again for just a few minutes? Can you share some of your amazing nuggets that you shared on October 27th on your 100% free webinar that told everyone what was going to be happening and some of what's going to be experiencing during that 6-week journey starting November 1st. So let's get right down to it. Mom of 4, amazing doctor, Lyme Conqueror Warrior. Let's talk about what you shared in your free webinar that so many of us, I didn't, but so many of us missed because you're so popular and it's such a hot topic that every seat filled up that people could not attend. And I told you, where it's going to sell out, you're not going to have enough seats. And you kind of giggled and said, I don't think so. And I said, you're going to have to do a couple of these. So thank you for popping on tonight. I'm so happy you're in my central time zone tonight. We didn't have to try to calculate the time zone. So tell us what all this hype is about, your immune system, about your kitchen, just simple things you have that can actually boost your immune system. And then I know you talked a lot about COVID, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So is keto enough for immune system? What is this webinar that you talked about? And then I know I'll give you 3 big questions here. And then before we leave tonight, how do we attend your 6-week class? How do we do that? And what would be beneficial for us or maybe a friend, a family member? So what did we miss starting with that? What was that all about that none of us could make because you are so, so awesome?
Okay, stop. That's so many questions. Okay, the first thing I want to say, thank you for that introduction, by the way, Heather. The first thing I need to say before I answer any of those 1,200 questions is I'm sorry. It was totally my fault that webinar filled up. I should have listened to Dr. Heather. If you're out there ignoring her advice, it's always good advice. Always listen to Dr. Heather is the takeaway, because she was like, it's going to fill up. And I was like, no, it won't. And she was like, yes, it is. And I was like, I don't want to pay for that. And then I should have just paid for it and upgraded and got a bigger webinar because, you know, a lot of people didn't get in, and I feel really badly about that, which is why I'm now like doing the circuit of, okay, let me just redo it on everyone's Facebook page. Okay. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient and not getting mad. I won't make that mistake again. So question number 1 of 1200. The webinar was ostensibly about what are the things you can do to impact your immune system in a positive way so that as cold, flu, cough season / the holidays and Christmas cookies come along, you don't fall off the wagon, undermine your immune health, and set yourself up for disaster. Disaster this year is the usual plus, right? It's like extra dangerous this year to not have your immune system on point. I don't even have to mention why, right? We all know that virus that shall not be named, which is still floating through the population and taking people down. I said this in my webinar. I didn't really get into COVID a lot. I did last time I did the webinar. I wanted to give people a break because we're all kind of sick of it. We're sick of talking about it, but that doesn't mean you can ignore your lifestyle and your health, because just because you're sick of talking about it and hearing about it doesn't mean it's gone, right? It's even more important as the flu season comes around that we're on point. So I went through sort of the top 5 foods to avoid if you want to make sure you're as healthy as possible. And then I went through 5 immune boosting activities that everyone should be engaged in on a regular basis, like the non-negotiable things. And maybe I'll start there, because those are the kinds of things that, if you're not already doing these 5 things, you really need to consider that. So number 1 is sleep. Like, you have to get your sleep, people. Like, if you're using an alarm clock to get up every morning, you're by definition sleep deprived. Your body, your brain, your physiology, your detox mechanisms, your immune system need more sleep, or needed more sleep last night. Otherwise, you would have slept till you woke up. So if you're waking up with some external flogging, like someone coming in, dog barking, licking your face, the sunlight in your eyes, that alarm clock, I believe alarm clocks should be banned, honestly. They're just toxic little devices that we just all normalize. But the bottom line is, if you're using one of any kind, you're sleep deprived, and you could do better to get the sleep you need. And that's free, by the way. That's a free hack.
I always say that sleep is your secret weapon to your overall health. I mean, there's some studies showing that even if you sleep, but you're not getting 4 hours or plus in a row, that actually disrupts it and starts turning on ghrelin, turning off leptin, your cortisol is disrupted. So you're right, it's a game over if you're not getting 7 to 8 hours uninterrupted sleep. So fix your sleep hygiene first. Totally agree.
And if you are getting 7 or 8 or even 9 hours and you're still using an alarm clock, you need more. Like, that's not a magic number that works for everybody. Some people need 5, some people need 10. Get what you need. Go to bed on a night you have nothing to get up for the next day, and sleep until your body wakes up naturally. Again, blacken the windows, don't let the dog lick your face. Like, tell everyone, this is a sanctuary. I'm doing an experiment to see what I need. And then go to bed the night before, moving forward, knowing how much time you'll need, because you did the experiment on yourself, and sleep that long. If you have to get up at 6, go to bed earlier if you need to. If you have to get up at 5, go to bed earlier. If you have to get up at 2 for some reason, you may have to set an alarm. If you're on night shift, you're going to have to create a different kind of sleep cycle for yourself, but get the sleep your body needs, period. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to eat foods. I was thinking about even sharing. Do you want me to share my screen? Because I can pull my little agenda up again. Because that might be for the people who are visual learners. I'm a visual learner. Where am I? So let's do, let me share it real quick. Share screen. Oh, you disabled my screen sharing. Yeah.
Let me see.
You may have to go to participants and then allow me some special.
I think I have to make you host.
Woo-hoo.
Allow record, rename, make host. There we go. Yes, there you go.
Okay then. Well, this is interesting. Now my webinar just disappeared. So give me a minute.
Now it says you can share.
Okay. All right, opening webinar presentation. Wow, disappeared. Wow, this is like one of those Mercury in retrograde moments. There's a lot of weirdness happening. Okay, here we go. I opened it as a PDF. All right, number two is exercise. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like training for a marathon. You need to be doing some movement every day. It boosts your immune system. It reduces stress, which therefore boosts your immune system and lowers your other inflammation issues. It's important to be doing some kind of movement every day, even if it's just walking around the block, walking to the mailbox. Take where you are and think about taking it up a notch. Move one step closer to a little bit more active, and to the point where you're getting at least 30 minutes of active exercise every day. Can you see that?
Yes, I'm just trying to get my light. It's starting to get dark super quick here. We had snow in Kansas today.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
It's real. It's really happening. Next, do activities that transform fear and stress. Exercise is definitely one of those things for me. My stress comes down. Most people's stress come down. You can create more stress in your body by overtraining yourself. So some people out there might be guilty of that. And you have to understand that if you're creating inflammation in your body by just how much exercise you're doing, you may have to do additional things to lower that stress, lower that inflammation in your body. I love tapping. It's a beautiful way to kind of take any fear that I'm dealing with. Yeah, either up here. I like the little butterfly hug. This is my favorite. Even though I feel terrified of COVID, or even though I'm feeling really stressed about my child who's away on the front lines, or whatever it is, I still love and accept myself wholly and completely. I still know that God or my higher power, like my grandmother or my parents or my cat, love and accept me wholly, completely, and unconditionally. It's really important to find something like that. For some people, it's yoga. For some people, it's meditation or mindfulness. Find some activity and do it every day. Think of it as your mental flossing, okay? You're flossing out those thoughts, limiting beliefs, fears that are keeping you from being optimally well and stressing you out. Next, real food and pure water, period. Like, this is a non-negotiable for me. If I put stuff in my body, I'm very sensitive now since my Lyme disease thing. I know when I put something in there that's not going to keep me optimally well. Not everyone is super sensitive, but if you stick with real foods, you follow the Michael Pollan rules where you're shopping the periphery in the supermarket, you don't go down those aisles. People do not go down those aisles. Those aisles are filled with non-foods. If you read the labels, you'll be shocked at the non-foods you're putting in your body by going down the aisles. But if you shop the periphery, especially if you can shop farmers markets, if you can grow your own food, even better. But food that comes out of the earth, comes from an animal, comes from a plant, those are your best bets, because those things are actually going to nourish you and help you to detox, to remove obstacles to healing and health, and also to empower your immune system with all the vitamins and rich phytonutrients that you need. And then pure water.
I'm going to slow you down. So how much water should the average human, and this is water, not water in coffee, not water in tea, not water in a plastic, how much water should the average human need per day?
Well, it depends, but my general rule is to start with half of your body weight. So take your body weight in pounds. I weigh 160. Half of that is 80. For those of you who don't feel like doing math at this hour, convert that to ounces of water. So I should be drinking 80 ounces of water every day. And I carry around this big stainless steel thing because if I don't, I won't drink it. I dispense it and I drink it. And if I don't fill that up a couple times, I haven't gotten to my 80 ounces of water. If you are detoxing, if you're feverish, if you're sweating a lot, if you're exercising a ton, if you're peeing a ton because you're new to being in keto, right? And you're peeing out all your ketones before your body can figure out how to efficiently use them, you're going to lose more water. You should drink more.
And you said something interesting on the webinar. Now, if your lips are cracked or you're having this cracks or fissure, sometimes it can be like a B vitamin deficiency, but just on the regular term, a kiddo or an adult or somebody, if you're having cracks around your lips, what does that mean for water dehydration?
You're already a liter behind.
What?
You're already a liter behind, Dr. Heather.
Ridiculous. I love that factoid.
Yeah. All right. So those are my top 4. The last one is a comprehensive elimination diet. I went to Georgia and was on the front lines in April with a friend of mine. We went down for 2 weeks. We really wanted to serve and figure out, just be there and get a sense of what is this whole thing really about. And indeed, the people who were really, really sick from COVID were people with a lot of comorbidities. They were older, they were obese, they had cancer, they had hypertension, they had diabetes, and they sort of fit the picture of the high-risk patient. But we were shocked at some of the providers down there who were drinking Coca-Cola in between their shifts and who were eating a bunch of junk. For me, we were on point down there. We were okay, we're going to go on an elimination diet. in preparation of that trip, because we know that if we're not putting any food in our body that's potentially allergenic, potentially going to create inflammation, we're going to be in such a better place, because all those comorbidities, Heather, as you know, all have at their root inflammation in the body. And inflammation in the body is always connected to inflammation in the gut. And the best way I know to lower inflammation in the body is to do a comprehensive elimination diet, clear the table, clear the gut of all the potential allergens for 3 weeks to let it heal, and then add things back if you want to, one at a time, to see if it causes any issues. I know you've done this plenty of times. A lot of your patients already know about this. I'll talk a little bit more about this, because this is what my 6-week program is actually about. It's a guided journey through a comprehensive elimination diet. And that would be like, those other things are really important. They're all really non-negotiable. They're not in any particular order, but this would be my prescription for the world. Remember in the beginning, everyone was talking about flattening the curve. Flattening the curve just means the same number of people die, but they don't die all at once and overwhelm the healthcare system and overwhelm the ventilators. Like, what is that even about? Like, I would love to get rid of the curve. Why does anybody need to die of this? If people who die are, for the vast majority of them, are people with inflammation, why aren't we talking as a nation about how to reduce inflammation? Because that could potentially save so many people. It boggles my mind. And so when I went down to Georgia, Greg and my husband and I were talking, I was like, I just feel like, I'm going down there. Who knows if I'll come back, right? My 9-year-old said to me, I said, are you worried, Xavier, that I'm going down there? Like, are you worried about mommy? He's like, no, mommy, we're going to be fine. In times of crisis, it calls on us to make great sacrifices. I was like, are you sacrificing me? Like, is that what you're saying? It's like, no, you're sacrificing time with us. But I was like, seriously, like, who knows what's going to happen, right? It was really early in the pandemic. I didn't know if this stuff was really going to work. I believed that I would be okay because I do all this stuff, and I believe that I don't have a ton of inflammation because, again, I follow this prescription. But, who knew, right? And I said, as I was leaving, I was like, I wish that if I don't come back, like, I just want everyone to have this information. Like, this is the prescription for health. And so this is why I'm doing these webinars and, trying to get the word out, because I really believe we could make a difference if everybody knew this information and actually did it.
Right. And, the truth of it is we're only as sick as our immune system. That's where these comorbidities end up, no matter if it's C. diff or it's strep or it's, septic of an older person in a nursing home. It's the same conversation we'd have, but I need to make sure that we are making disclaimer, or that you make the disclaimer here, that you're not suggesting that if you go on Dr. Kristen's comprehensive elimination diet, that you're going to make your body superhero strong, that you're not going to 100% not get anything. You're going to present some information, make some suggestion that science shows that if you have a stronger immune system, that your immune system is not going to be distracted from attacking things like gluten and casein and red dye number 40, that it can actually focus on making new red blood cells and do things like autophagy and do all that good stuff. So I'll let you make we didn't start with the disclaimer, which we should have done.
We should have. Yeah. Okay, so review, rewind, disclaimer. Anything we say on here is not medical advice, right? We're both doctors. We both give advice to our patients in private consultation. You obviously, we're not in that kind of relationship right now. This is just information that I have found very useful in my own life, in my family's life, and with my patients. And so any changes you make, any lifestyle choices you make, including taking this top 5 kind of prescription, it's really just information that you can think about with your healthcare provider, make choices that are in alignment with your health goals, and hopefully with the guidance of a trusted person. Thank you, Dr. Heather. All right. So here are the top 5 foods that are not your friend. Number 1, gluten. It's always gluten. No one likes to hear this. It's super inconvenient, right? Because so many tasty things come, packaged with gluten or loaded with gluten or made from gluten. This is the breads and the pastas and the pastries and the cookies and the baked goods and everything else gluten gets like sprinkled into like pixie dust. I'm not sure why it needs to be in everything, like including Aveda shampoo, which put me out for 2 hours one Christmas when my husband gave it to me, and it like leached into my skin, and I was like, I'm out, tap out for 2 hours, missed presents. But it's in a lot of things. This is the wheat and the barley and the rye. It's also the The oats that get contaminated, some other grains sometimes get contaminated with gluten because of how they're processed on machinery. So it's just best to keep it out. One bite of gluten can lead to inflammation in your gut where, 80% of your immune system lives, creating antibodies that persist for up to 9 months. And those things, as you know, can go and like attack your thyroid gland, can attack your blood-brain barrier, can go hang out in your joints and create inflammation. I mean, it's just not a friend of any healing project or any person who wants to be healthy. Super inconvenient. I know some of you have already left the building and we're no longer friends. I get it. It's not the funnest fact, but it is a fact.
It's so crazy. I haven't had gluten. Christian got diagnosed when he was 4 years old. He's 22 now. I haven't had it in so long. I don't even think it's a deal.
I don't even think it's a deal either. And I was like addicted to the stuff. I mean, I had a bread machine.
Addicted to it. It just was simple. But I make a mean, like if I get to make something, make like a, almond meal waffle or coconut, or I don't even miss that stuff.
No, I don't either. Well, part of it too is that we're literally not addicted. I mean, remember, gluten becomes gluteomorphin in your bloodstream, which is morphin, sounds a lot like morphine for a reason. It's a molecule that looks a lot like an opioid to our body. So, if you think your kid gets a little bit high after eating a big piece of cake, well, no wonder, right? If you feel a little drugged, or what do we call it? Postprandial, what is that? The postprandial kind of
it's glutathione
fatigue.
Yeah.
Fatigue. Postprandial fatigue, fancy doctor language for, a little bit tired after a meal. It's not because all your blood rushes to your stomach like we were taught in medical school. It's because you just ingested a drug. Your body's like out. Your brain's like shutting down for a little bit.
Yeah, I've shared that with people that finished at the study that some people actually do metabolize it like morphine, the same thing with casein. And they did this in people. I compare it to someone in a bar. There's a person who gets in the bar and they drink beer, they get happy. Some people get lovey-dovey, get physical. Some people get mad. Some people get tired. It's the same thing that people who do a drug, they either get physical, they get romantic, or they get, they get tired. It's the same thing that's happening. So whether it's a loaf of bread or it's a bottle of something.
Yeah. One of them's legal, one of them's not. One of them is not for children. We give our kids all sorts of things that are harming their brains all the time. This is a really important topic for me. One of my kids had a really bad eczema, and I took him off gluten, did a whole elimination diet with him several times actually. And the reason I had to do it several times is because he would go back on the stuff. That we weren't, my husband and I weren't on the same page for many years about whether it was important. And that when you're not on the same page as a partnership, the kids just like, put the crowbar right between you and like wrench you apart. And that's sort of their job, to scope out the discrepancies. So for many years, that's what it was like, but he always got better off of gluten. And one year, the year we finally were on the same page several years ago, he said to me within a couple of weeks, he stopped, his eczema was like 90% better. And he said, Mommy, I hate to admit this, but I think you're right about me and gluten. And I said, well, why do you say that? Thinking that he was going to say, well, I'm not like scratching until I bleed into my sheets every night. I don't look like a leper. But instead, he said, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not depressed anymore. I didn't know he was even struggling in that way. So it can do all sorts of different things for all sorts of people. It's one of the things that make people sort of doubt that it's a thing. They're like, well, I don't have that. Well, you don't have to have that. Some people have no symptoms, and yet there's pretty good evidence that it's ripping open your gut every time you eat it. Yeah, and your gut heals, which is great for you, but there's also this leaky gut phenomenon that happens intermittently while it's healing that can, set up all sorts of problems, which is what my program addresses actually. So number 2, you ready for this one? The other thing that can turn into a morphine-like substance, caseomorphin, and that's dairy. And dairy doesn't include eggs, people. I don't know why we all think that. Is that like the dairy industry or the egg industry? They got together and they're like, let's be buddies and just call it all dairy. Eggs are not dairy. This is like any product from a cow, any like product from cow milk, sheep milk, goat milk, like cheese, yogurt, milk, turns out to be super important for baby cows, goats, and sheep. The rest of us, not so much. And it's a real problem in the cold, flu, and winter because it creates a big glob of mucus in the backs of our throats and in our nasal passages that sits there like a sponge, like a landing pad, really waiting for viruses to float in, set up shop, and then, get stuck in our system. Our body can't get rid of it. Our immune cells can't get into that mucus glob to get rid of them. So it creates a barrier that's not our friend, especially during seasonal allergy season is another time that's a good time to give up dairy, but definitely going into the fall, flu, cold, cough, holiday and COVID season. You want to say anything else about that, Dr. Heather?
No,
Okay. You don't want to go there. You don't want to talk about the glacier?
no, I don't talk about the glacier.
All right, next, sugar. This one's no surprise, right? It's pretty uncontroversial at this point. However, what is controversial is a lot of people think their fruit habit is okay. You know, probably not a whole.
Fruitarians.
The fruitarians, right?
Mhm.
The fruitarians think that they're eating this like beautifully colored, you know, phytonutrient rich, lots of healthy, you know, low glycemic because there's all that fiber. Yes, 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 and yes. And it still all breaks down to sugar in your body. So it's still not a great plan to become a fruitarian over the winter. Next one would be GMO foods. So this is like gluten. It tears open the lining of your gut. It also impairs your microbiome. It creates a real lack of diversity in your microbiome, which is all the special bacteria, yeast, fungus, parasites, viruses, but mostly bacteria that live in your intestines and do a lot of work for us.
So
right?
what exactly, just in case people don't know, people do say, oh, non-GMO, but I don't know if people really understand. I'm a farm girl, so I absolutely know what that means. But what does GMO mean? Or people are looking for non-GMO food. What exactly does that mean?
Genetically modified organism.
So why should we not eat that?
Why should we not eat them? Well, because like anything else that we didn't evolve with, the lining of our gut, our immune system, which lives in the lining of our gut, didn't evolve recognizing those things as food. And so treats them like foreign invaders. Simple as that. It's just not something your body evolved to recognize as food. Now, medications fall into that category as well. And some people need certain medications to thrive and to stay healthy. So it's important to recognize that I'm not saying stop all your medications right now, but you know, these are other things. These are things that are built in a lab that have all sorts of unknown impacts, have never really fully been studied on humans. And if you look at the stories, the anecdotal evidence of what comes out of people's experience when they stop GMOs, it's really pretty clear that a lot of people are very sensitive to these things. And some people, just in the same way some people aren't sensitive to gluten and we know it's a problem, probably everyone's not doing great with this. Stephanie Seneff has had some really interesting research and does a lot of talks on how this impacts the microbiome, how it messes with the Shikimati pathway, which is something that the bacteria, which outnumber us 10 to 1, right? Cell for cell, we're mostly bacteria, cell for cell. And those things require something called the Shikimati pathway to create these different amino acids, and that we then use to build neurotransmitters and other chemicals for our physiology to thrive. And so if we are messing with the microbiome, ultimately it comes back to haunt us, and GMOs are just not our friend for that reason. And then finally, the last food that is not your friend is any personal hidden food allergen that you determine through a comprehensive elimination diet doesn't feel good for you. And so this is where I think it's important for people to understand what I am talking about when I say comprehensive elimination diet. Is it okay if I talk about that now, or do you have another question before I jump into that?
Well, my German Shepherd is having a lot of fun because a Shih Tzu is out next door. But somebody did ask a question a little while ago about naps. So there are some questions I'm going to ask you. We can come back to those. So I just want to let some of those people know we'll come back to questions, but no, that's what I have. And yes, Ingrid, you're fine to be there. So I'm going to mute myself because my dog is barking, but no, that's what I had a question on. And then people identifying their own hidden food allergies, because sometimes they don't know that till after they do the elimination diet. So no, go ahead. I'm just muting myself because my puppy's being loud.
No problem. We're all in the same boat with this COVID stuff. You know, we've got kids running around, we've got dogs barking, we got mailmen coming to the door. It's all good. So the comprehensive elimination diet is a 21-day intervention. I learned about it from the Institute for Functional Medicine as I was recovering from Lyme disease, and I used it as an intervention to see if it would help at all, help my pain, and it did indeed. Not only did I have my pain reduced with that, but I had so much energy that my kids were like, "Mom, what gives? Like, you're getting up every morning, you're swimming in our pool, you're making breakfast for everyone, you're making lunch for everyone, you're starting dinner, then we wake up. Like, what's going on with this energy? Is this the diet you're doing?" Because of course everyone's talking about the diet, nobody wanted to do it. And I said, I don't know, because it's my first round through, but I kind of think it is. Like, I'm not really sure where else this energy would come from. And I have more energy than I felt since I had all you monkeys. And they were like, well, let's do it then. Let's do it. So that was like my 10-year-old, my 7-year-old, And my 4-year-old jumped in. And at that point, my husband was like, oh, for God's sakes. All right, I'll give up coffee. And so we did a 21-day elimination together. I started over, right? Because they joined in. And I think maybe someone fell off the wagon a couple of times. I probably did 5 weeks rather than 3, just because I was, in solidarity, teamwork. And at that point, I was feeling so great that I was like, I may never add any of this stuff back. And so basically, you take out the top 10 allergens, which include, which I'll give you a list in a minute, but it's basically gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, corn, peanuts, oranges, pork, beef, eggs, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, and any, vegetable oils, pesticides. You take them out for 3 weeks, you let the gut heal. And once the gut is healed, you add them back, the ones you want anyway, one by one over a period of 3 days each, and you see how you feel. The gut is much more sensitive at this point because it's healed and healthy, and it doesn't have a bunch of fog in its face telling, it's not like you're like giving it stuff all the time that it can't handle. It's more like, ooh, I'm feeling good. Wait, what's that you just brought in? That didn't make me feel so good. And so you might have a symptom, like you might have some gas or bloating or maybe diarrhea or constipation or pain. Maybe it's not at all a gut related symptom. Often gut issues are not gut related symptoms. Maybe you have worsening of your eczema when you add a food back that's not your friend. Maybe you have some postnasal drip come back. Maybe you have a headache or a fever or just brain fog. All these things are super common. Skin rashes, super common. And so you pay close attention. And one of the beauties of this diet is not just that you feel great for 3 weeks and then go back to eating all the things that you shouldn't eat. It's that you learn as you add things back, which of those things should be on your plate for optimal wellness. And if you can add everything back and feel awesome, by all means, go on everything else and keep eating it. You've learned, you've done the work to figure out that you're really able to tolerate those foods and they're not allergens for you.
There are some cases when people go through elimination diets where they feel a little worse before they feel a little better, correct?
Absolutely. And in fact, it's a pretty good sign that you're on the right track if you have a kind of crappy day 3. Day 3, we usually talk about it like a detox day, as the gut begins to heal, because the gut starts to heal within a few days. I mean, you remove the things that are bothering it. And you talk about this all the time with intermittent fasting and gut rest, Heather. You know that the gut begins to heal really pretty quickly when you stop challenging it with things that are creating more inflammation. So by day 3, most people have enough inflammation reduced, enough healing under their belt that they're actually able to notice a difference. And usually the first difference they notice is that they feel worse. The reason for that is your gut now is doing its job. It's like no longer distracted by gluten and dairy and soy and sugar and all the inflammation those things create. It's now detoxing. It's pulling metal out of your body and it's pulling it down to the sink that is the colon. And it's getting rid of it. And as those things come from deep spaces in your body and get drawn down to a healed, ready to go, ready to detox gut, that traffic through your body can create some inflammation. So it's normal to feel a little bit off. I recommend people don't do an elimination diet until they have a day 3 that's kind of clear on their calendar and they know they can lie on the couch with a heating pad on their face and a big glass of water and maybe get an Epsom salts bath a few times a day so they can really work through that quickly and easily.
So I'm going to ask you a couple questions here and interrupt your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So you've done this with a few hundred people. Tell me a couple of the top 2 stories or the experiences with this on your 6-week program that really kind of bring you the warm fuzzies that have been just remarkable experiences. Think people who've been sick for decades upon decades, like we're a few decades old, but just maybe 1 or 2 people who had an experience, maybe who kind of put their feet in the mud and didn't really want to do it, but were all in, and what their experiences have been. Because I know we've got a few minutes here left, but I just want to always think, again, I'm a visual learner, I'm an auditory learner. I love hearing warm, fuzzy stories of people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Short changes in 42 days, the body can do amazing things. So tell me a story or 2 that really brought it home for you of people doing your 6-week program.
Okay. Well, I'll tell the first story I'll tell wasn't from one in the program, but a woman I saw one-on-one. I did this. I mean, I've done this for hundreds of people prior to having a program, and it was all one-on-one. And she came to me. She was one of my very first patients in my holistic kind of integrative practice. And she found me, she had years of hypertension, like, 30 years of being on 2 and then 3 and then 4 medications for high blood pressure. And every year she would go to her doctor and she would say, what should I do? What can I do that I'm not already doing to reduce my blood pressure? And the doctor would look at her pressures and they'd all be normal because she was band-aiding all of her pressures with these medicines. And he'd say, nothing, you're doing just fine. You're doing great, in fact. See you next year. And she eventually got kind of sick of this. And she was a yoga practitioner. She was a meditator. She had all these other tools, and it didn't really feel right with her that she was taking all these medications. So a friend of hers said, why don't you go see Dr. Kristen Ryman? She does something with nutrition, I heard, and maybe she can help with, maybe there's something with nutrition you can do for your blood pressure. So she came to me and I was like, you've never done let's do this. Let's do the comprehensive elimination diet. It's the first step to any healing project in my book. The best thing I know.
Remove
and she was a little
interference.
Yeah, remove the interference, heal the gut and see what's left. And then you can challenge the gut once you feel better. So she went home. She came back with a very meticulous notebook. She had all of her symptoms. She had all the medications. She had her blood pressure. She was taking it like 2 or 3 times a day. And she got to the point where after a week, she was off 3 of the 4 of her blood pressure medications and her blood pressure was still normal. By week 3, she was off all of her blood pressure medications for the first time in like 20 years. And her blood pressure was normal. It was like 120/75. And she came to me then before she was going to reintroduce. And she was like in disbelief. She was like, is this a fluke? Like, is this placebo? Like, what is going on here? And to me, it made perfect sense because she had eliminated all those things that were perpetuating inflammation, which again, is the root cause of so many chronic conditions. And at that point, guess what her only issue was? She was pissed. She was enraged that no one had ever told her that she could change her diet and heal her chronic conditions. So then we worked on that, right? We did some tapping, we did, and that was all important too. But like the bottom line is she had figured out, she had learned for her own self moving forward, what should be on her plate and what shouldn't for optimal results, including not having high blood pressure. So that was really cool. I used to come home and tell my husband stories like this. He was like, are you writing these down? I was like, with what time? I got to go do the dishes and make dinner, But once I've been doing groups, like since I've been doing groups the last couple of years, it's so fun because everyone else is witnessing this with me, like we're on a big Zoom call. It's like Hollywood Squares. And this person's like, wait, you did what? Wait, your macular degeneration is going away. What? I had a lady who in one of my groups who lost her macular degeneration. Like first she lost her IBS, which is why she was there. She was so cute. She was like, she was sort of in her 70s. She's like, do you ever heard of like in IBS? Well, I have IBS. I have bloating and diarrhea and all this. She's like, it's gone 6 days into the diet. Do you think it's the diet? I'm like, what do you think? I don't know. Yes, I think it's the diet. And then about 3 weeks in, she's like, I don't know if this is related, but I have this thing called macular degeneration. It's where your macula degenerates and you can't see. And I haven't been able to play the cello for, several months because even though she was a professional cellist, she was a musician. She's like, I can't play it anymore because I can't see the music. And I was like, oh, she's like, and I'm taking up painting because it's a real loss and I'm grieving. And I was like, oh my God. And a week later, she reports, I was outside and I was walking along the street and I realized I could see the street signs and it was dusk. That was new. So I went home and then I thought, if I could see the street signs at dusk, maybe I could see my music. So I pulled out my cello music and I could read the notes and I'm playing the cello again. We're all in the Zoom call, we're crying. We're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. It's amazing what happens when you reduce inflammation.
Yeah, I love that when you do in group settings too. Like I had somebody tell me that they didn't know the leaves were actually not connected at the top of a tree. They thought they came unconnected when they fell off the tree. They didn't know there were individual leaves at the top.
Wow.
I know.
Amazing. Amazing the glories of the universe that you can appreciate when you're not sick.
Okay, so and we consider, and I know that we could get stories out of you all night long. So tell us again, when is your 6-week program starting? How many spots do you have left? How do we sign up for your good stuff?
So 6 weeks starting November 1st. So you can register. We're not capping it. If I get too many people, I'm just going to like add another Zoom call every week so that people, people can make the one they can make. But basically, I want as many people to have this information as possible. It's still, registration's still available. We'll throw a link in the chat as soon as we're done here. And the first 20 people who sign up get a 30-minute free consultation with me. So you get to talk to me, doctor, patient. You get to hear my tweaks for how I would make this diet even more kind of unique to you. A lot of that comes out in the course, but you kind of get to do it up front and really get the benefit of that. And there's still a couple spots, not a ton, but maybe 1 or 2 spots left for that. So if you want this course, now's the time to jump in because you get that bonus. But basically we do a 6-week online program. It's a self-paced guided tour of the elimination diet. I'm hand holding the whole way. I'm loving you up. I'm cheerleading. I'm giving you information. You get an online membership portal where all the videos live, all the recipes live. I'm constantly adding to the recipes because this one's going to be over Thanksgiving. I've created a whole Thanksgiving feast, pumpkin pie included, that's elimination diet approved and kid friendly. My 17-year-old, who's always kind of cranky about me substituting, was like, actually, Mom, that's really good. So I'm excited about that. I have a whole way of eating that I teach you so that you don't have cravings. It's basically, spoiler alert for your population, it's a modified ketogenic diet or ketogenic diet, depending on your goals. So people are getting plenty of healthy fats, they're limiting their carbs, they're learning when they do eat carbs, how to use healthy fats and different other guidelines so that they don't spike their blood sugar, feed their yeast, get cravings, and done for you shopping lists. So it's a really great community. We have a lot of people who are eager to join in. We have a bunch of people who are rebooting from previous courses. So there's going to be a lot of wisdom to tap in there. And yeah, I hope people consider joining. I hope everyone does an elimination diet. And I hope if you're the kind of person who needs extra support, hand-holding, guidance, I hope you'll join us because this is why I created this program, is for you. I also am throwing in a bunch of bonuses, including the fabulous Heather Cardin's talk on gut rest and intermittent fasting from the Healing Grove. I'm putting in a talk by Craig Emmerich, an interview I did with him on keto and carnivore. Zen Honeycutt and Stephanie Seneff, their talks are going to be there too. I think those are super relevant for people trying to understand why we get out the foods we get out and the toxins that have to be out. And then I've got my ebook in there, which I think has become almost like a little textbook for people. There's so much in there about detox and healthy living that people will really benefit from that. And I've got an extra feng shui talk in there with my sister Bethany, who Heather. We showed up at your house one day and in your home and hung out a couple of years ago.
We have to say that she's from California and you're from Pennsylvania. So it was a real shock to meet right in the middle of the USA.
Yeah, that you were like right in the middle of our compromise. We were driving cross country with some furniture. That was our furniture road trip a couple of years ago. Super fun. She's going to talk to us about feng shuiing out our kitchen so that we can optimize the energy flow and the good feelings there. So we feel really super cozy and happy in our kitchens. And that's what's happening. There's also a bunch of other videos in there. I've got a yoga video, Ayurvedic medicine video. I've got recipes for vegans and vegetarians who, yes, can still do a modified keto diet and an elimination diet and remain vegan and vegetarian. I give you my favorite protocols for releasing and reducing stuck old stuff and transforming fear and stress into love and gratitude. And again, a one-on-one consultation with me if you get in on the first 20 signups. So that's that. It's not for you if you are already running with this information. God bless you. Go do it. May you rock the elimination diet and lower your risk of terrible badness this season and increase your joy and vitality. If you don't have access to a computer, you probably wouldn't be here, but that's also important because it's all online. If you've already done a comprehensive elimination diet this year and you've honored your body's requests when you added food back, it's not for you. You did it. You're good. You're done. Mischief managed. And if you don't really care about being healthy, or you feel like you're good to go, God bless you. I hope you're right. And everyone else, it's kind of for you, especially if you need extra handholding and support. So the cost of that is $497. We also have payment options, and I hope that you will ask your questions. I'll be back on your Facebook page over the next couple of days to answer them. I also have a Q&A coming up on Wednesday because so many people missed the talk. I also sent out to my list saying, look, come back, I'll answer your questions. We'll work through your obstacles and see if this is the right thing for you. If it is, I want you there, bottom line. So let's figure out how we can get you there.
thank you so much for being here and jumping on and helping us really share the amazing nuggets about your 6-week program. And there's so much good stuff offered there. There's like so much like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. Like, you just don't want to miss out on all the amazing gifts that you're offering throughout the entire 6 weeks. It feels like it's Christmas starting already in just a couple days. So can I ask you one question that somebody asked about very, very early on? How do you feel about naps if you're not sleeping very good at night?
I think naps are really important if you're not sleeping very well at night. I mean, ideally you're sleeping when you don't need to be functioning in the world, but if you can space yourself out in the day so that you can take a nap and you need it, take a nap. If your body needs to rest, rest your body.
I think that was from Claudia. I think she's actually over in Spain. I think she'd asked, she was on one of my previous ones, but
Claudia, don't you guys nap in Spain? Isn't that like part of your like routine at like 2 in the 2? I wish I lived in Spain for that reason. I would like naps to be normalized.
So you'll be back on checking for questions there. I did put the link, hopefully correctly, in the bottom. I'll put it also at the top. I'll go edit at the top and make sure I have the right link so you can be one of the first 20 to sign up and get your one-on-one chat with Dr. Kristen and get involved, because there's just a few days left to do that. But thank you again so much for doing this. I know you're not at home. You're actually in the Midwest today doing a bunch of other good services. So thanks again. Big hearts out to you, and help me walk through this to make sure this happened. My first time ever Facebook Live and Zoom at the same time. So hopefully figured it out. It looks like we did, because there's some peeps on there. So take care, and big hugs to you, and safe travels back home, and stay warm wherever you are. Keep your body warm, keep your immune system strong, and don't eat the sugar.
Thanks, Dr. Heather. Have a good night. Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you. You're the host, so you have to say good night.
Good night, everyone.